We have a special guest who's come all the way from where he lives. Aaron Lumsden, who loves the Lord and is a caretaker overseer with a discipleship house down in Vic Park.
Yes.
So I want you to really give Aaron a big hand to give him special to him.
Yes, so good evening. I'm so stoked to be here. Yes, my name is Aaron, and I'll be giving a testimony tonight. So I grew up in from a very sheltered household. Like I grew up in Indonesia as a foreigner, which basically meant that because of my father's working visa, I lived in a box, pretty much. I went from school, home, and the mall, and pretty much nothing in between. So a lot of the opportunities that you guys have here in Australia, I didn't have growing up. A lot of the temptations, a lot of the influences that you have here in Australia, I didn't have growing up. Like, as long as I had my iced coffee and I had my school books and I had my house, that was life for me. We did go to church. I grew up in a Christian family, which my parents were awesome to me. We went to church every Sunday. I grew up listening to the Bible all the time. I went to Sunday school, and life was awesome. But there's something that we all have in common, and that is that whether we like it or not when we're born, it's like we've got this void, this emptiness inside of us, and like I couldn't put words to it. Like I couldn't figure it out, but life was awesome, so I didn't really have to deal with it. In fact, everything in my life was kind of like a band-aid for that. Whether it was, hanging out with friends, watching a movie, drinking way too much coffee. It was just one of those lifestyles where I didn't have to think. I just had to do what I was told, and that was it. But that all came to an end. Unfortunately, reality hits us at some point, and we need to go out in the real world and experience life for what it is. In the real world, people aren't always nice to you. Jobs aren't always easy to come by. Education isn't easy. And so I went into the real world and I got absolutely smashed because I was used to being told that, no one's ever going to verbally abuse you, life is awesome, God bless you. And I went out and life was just nothing like that. So all of a sudden I didn't have all of these things in my life that I could use to cover up that void inside of me. And a lot of these issues that I had came to the surface that I didn't know I had. For example, I had low self-esteem. I didn't think very highly of myself, but I just thought, it's being humble. It's not actually. I realized that God loved me, and what that means is I'm worth being loved. But I didn't know that. And so what happened was when I came across situations where people would reject me, I took it really badly. And then life just sort of slowly, and it took a while. I did this over 2 years where everything slowly went downhill. I was later diagnosed with depression. And I had to go see a psych, and it was just one of those things where I thought myself into a hole. I kept thinking and thinking and thinking until I thought, what's the point? And when you think about it, what's the point of life? You will never be remembered after this point. Well, within reason. Your grandchildren will probably remember you, but in 100 years, no one will. I thought, well, that's terrible. What if I made all the money in the world? I couldn't figure it out. Actually, even Genghis Khan, this dude who lived like a couple hundred years ago, he owned, everything from China to Europe, but barely anybody thinks about him. And so I thought, well, what's the point to things? What's the point to life? And that's where I thought myself into that hole. And I didn't have the things of, my old life to help me. I didn't have family around me to encourage me. I didn't have friends. I didn't have any of that. Fast forward 2 years, I came here to Australia. My family moved here from Indonesia. I moved here from Singapore. I had a big chip on my shoulder. I did not like leadership. If you were a leader of any kind, I would single you out, and I did not like you. I would just not like you. We used to have this pastor, Pastor Phil. God bless him, he was an amazing pastor, but I found it quite difficult to sit under him. He was an amazing person, but for some reason, I just couldn't stand him. And I grew out of that. But first things first, I thought, I'll get a job, I'll get my education going, I'll go to uni, I'll do this, I'll do that. And everywhere I went, doors got shut. Everything I did, it was uncanny. Like I'd go for a job interview, but that day, the buses weren't running where I lived. Okay, well, I'll borrow Dad's car. Dad forgot the car keys, it's in his pocket, he's across town. So everything I did never amounted to anything while I tried to do things to to make my life better. But really, all those things were just band-aids to put over myself so I didn't feel that emptiness inside of me. And so I had to deal with that emptiness. And I think that's kind of what God did with me. God said, look, you can't go forward until you dealt with your heart problems. And like a lot of us, we fill our lives with, we try to stop those heart problems by filling it with other things, whether it be, you know, a codependent relationship with somebody, or alcohol, or anything, you know? It can be anything, even just watching way too much TV. I used to watch way too much YouTube. Like, I would sit on my phone for hours and just not move from the couch. And so I had to deal with those heart issues. So I went to the men's houses. I spent some time around the guys and just really learning everything that they had to learn. And that was dealing with who I was, what I was worth, and who I was in the sight of God. And then that's when it clicked. I'd grown up in a Christian family. Now, it's not just being in a church doesn't make you a Christian. You need to have that relationship with God. And it took a while for me to click that God wasn't just some sort of airy-fairy guy in the sky. It wasn't just some theory. It wasn't some sort of feel-good karma thing. No. God was actually like a person, and it was unreal. It really spun me out at first. And so I had to learn to give up my pride, and I had to learn to give up control, because we feel safe when we have control of situations. And I had to admit the fact that, actually, I don't have that much control over my life. Admittedly, most of us don't have a lot of control over our lives. And so I had to deal with that to say, look, what I have isn't much, God, but you tell me what to do. What do I do? And it was a really weird thing at first, but I started stepping out and I said, God, tell me what you want me to do. Tell me how you want me to change. And it was uncanny. Like, there were way too many coincidences in my life for God not to be real, because weird things would start lining up to the day kind of thing. And I just started to realize that bit by bit, there was an issue after issue after issue that was being dealt with. And each time I had to learn a lesson. And I think it's pretty safe to say that since then, I feel like I'm 10 times the man that I was at the very start. I feel like I can walk with my head held high. I know who I am. And I don't doubt like I used to. You know, when someone calls you out on something, I can say, nah, I know for sure this. I know for sure that. And it's changed who I am as a person. I have a confidence in myself. I have a confidence in my God. And it's really weird, but it's awesome. Like, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I regret nothing. The past 3 years have been the best 3 years of my life. And I'm glad to have done it, and I thank God that I've had the chance to do it. So, the things that I did was basically, God, if you're real, and if you're for real, I'll give you everything. Just tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do it. And since then, my life has never been the same. Thank you.